Atlanta, Georgia, October 1970. The air inside the Atlanta Municipal Auditorium was thick, not just with the sweltering, unseasonable heat of a southern autumn, but with a tension that was almost flammable. 5,000 expectant fans were packed tighter than tobacco in a cigarette, a volatile mixture of segregated worlds colliding. This was Atlanta, just 2 years after the world had lost Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., just a few hours' drive from where he was born and where he was buried. The civil rights movement had won major legislative victories, but laws on paper didn't change hearts or minds. Mainstream America was segregated by custom, if not by law, and in the South, those customs were guarded with desperate, fading, and vicious tenacity. Backstage, Tina Turner was about to walk into the center of the storm. She was the volcanic force behind the Ike and Tina Turner Revue, a show that was legendary for its raw power, energy, and sexual intensity. But she wasn't walking in alone. The Revue was a predominantly black ensemble, featuring a fierce horn section and the Ikeettes, who had cut their teeth on the Chitlin circuit, navigating the segregated clubs and danger-filled roads of the South. On this night, they were performing in a venue that was a concrete reminder of the division. The Municipal Auditorium had a segregated seating chart. Black patrons were restricted to the balcony, while white patrons occupied the floor. Ike Turner, the Revue's musical mastermind and leader, always had his eye on the bottom line. He knew the risks. He had received the suggestions. He'd been told by promoters that Southern traditionalists were nervous, that seeing black men commanding the stage with such primal, sophisticated power, with Tina, the explosive centerpiece, in a state that was still fighting integration, it was a provocation. But those promoters didn't know Tina Turner. They didn't know the woman who had been shaped not by custom, but by necessity. To understand what happened that night, you have to understand the Tina of 1970. She wasn't just a performer. She was a survivor. Growing up as Anna Mae Bullock in the segregated fields of Nutbush, Tennessee, she had been shaped by the Dust Bowl and the hard, manual labor of picking cotton. While her white peers were listening to polished pop, Tina was sneaking to the back door of black churches and juke joints, absorbing the visceral, raw gospel and blues that the white radio stations in Tennessee wouldn't play. She didn't just love the blues. It was her lifeline. Her life with Ike was a second prison. Having escaped Nutbush, she was now trapped in a violent, volatile partnership. She understood redemption because she had needed it, but she was still years away from finding her path. When Ike hired his musicians, it wasn't a political statement. It was a musical statement. He wanted the best player, regardless of how he looked. But in the South of 1970, the visual was the message. Before the Atlanta show, the promoter had received suggestions. They hinted that maybe the horn section should stay a bit further back, in the shadows. They suggested that Tina keep her distance from them on stage, particularly from the male musicians. Ike ignored them. But the message of the segregated hall was clear. You are here to entertain us, not to be equals. The concert began with a seismic shock. The Ike and Tina Turner Revue tore onto the stage with a honky-tonk ferocity. They opened with Working Man Blues, and the crowd was on its feet, a divided sea of people drawn together by the sheer force of the music. For 40 minutes, it seemed like the music, that perfect Bakersfield shuffle, might actually bridge the divide. Then came River Deep, Mountain High. It was her masterpiece, the song that defined her career. Halfway through, during the breakdown, the arrangement usually called for Tina to trade vocally with the Ikettes while the band provided a driving, sophisticated beat. But on this night, the music dropped down to just a throb, leaving only Tina's voice and a driving bass line. From the darkness of the white-only floor section, a voice rang out. It was a clear, piercing scream. A man, fueled by hate, hurled a racial slur so vile, so full of venom, that it felt like a physical blow to everyone on stage. He directed it straight at the horn section. The effect was instantaneous. The drummer's sticks hovered in midair. The horns went silent. The dynamic vanished, replaced by a cold, sickening dread. Tina stepped back, her eyes narrowing. She didn't look hurt. She looked possessed. She had a choice. If she ignored it, she'd get her paycheck and leave. If she challenged it, she was challenging her core audience. She was risking a riot. She walked to the edge of the stage, the microphone clutched in her hand. The spotlight followed her. She didn't say a word at first. He just stood there, staring into the dark arena, daring anyone to make another sound. "You," Tina said, her voice crackling through the PA system. "The one with the big mouth." The silence was deafening. 5,000 people held their breath. "I come from Nutbush," Tina said, her voice shaking with emotion. "I grew up picking cotton when I wasn't allowed to pick up a book. I've seen custom. I've seen laws written on paper that didn't change heart or mind. But the thing that saved my life was the soul. This music we're playing, this fire, it wasn't invented by white people in Muskogee. It was built by black people in Texas and Louisiana and Mississippi. This music belongs to all of us." Tina stepped back and grabbed her lead saxophonist by the hand, pulling him forward to center mic. "If you can't handle seeing us share this stage together, then you don't deserve to hear my music," Tina shouted. "We don't need your money, and we sure as hell don't need your hate in my house." For a few terrifying seconds, it looked like a riot would break out. Men stood up, shouting back at her. About 100 people stood up and began to march toward the exits, shouting insults, calling Tina a traitor. She stood her ground, her boots planted firmly, watching them leave. She didn't start the music until the last of them had filtered out into the Atlanta night. When the doors finally swung shut, a different sound began to grow. It started in the balcony, the colored-only section, and swept down to the floor. It was a rhythmic, soul-shaking cheer. 5,000 fans cheered for the music, for the woman, and for the family she had built on stage. Tina looked at her band, signaled to the drummer, and launched into Proud Mary. It was no longer a concert. It was an exorcism. She was on her feet, dancing with a ferocity that felt like it could knock the walls down. The color line hadn't just been crossed. It had been incinerated. The immediate aftermath was complex. News of the incident spread quickly. The headline in the next day's Atlanta Journal-Constitution read, "Tina Turner defies custom, banishes haters at auditorium." Letters poured into her fan club offices, with about 60% expressing support and 40% expressing pure, unadulterated hate. Some letters were so vicious they had to be turned over to law enforcement. The professional fallout was real. Future bookings in certain southern circuits became complicated. But Tina didn't care. She told friends later that the Atlanta show was the first time she felt like she had truly told the truth, because she had finally told the truth. Tina Turner would survive Ike, and she would find her global redemption. Decades later, history would racialize rock and roll as white music. But this moment proves that her commitment to the soul, to the empathy the soul demands, was her true moral north. Tina Turner was an enigma, rebellious, confounding those who thought they understood her. But on this night, she was a poet of moral iron. She showed her home country that you could be a proud woman from Nutbush and still stand for justice. And that is why, 50 years later, we are still listening. If you found this story powerful, please subscribe to our channel. We are dedicated to bringing you the full stories of the icons you love, not just the hits, but the heart. Hit the bell icon to join us for our next deep dive into the moments that changed music forever. Thanks for watching the untold story of Tina Turner's Stand.